steadfast as you have been commanded, and those who have turned back with you to Allah Ta'ala and do not transgress, indeed He is seeing of what you do. From Surah Al-Hud. And from Surah Al-Fussilat, Allah Ta'ala says, indeed those who say, Rabbuna Allah, Allah is our Rabb, and then they remain steadfast. ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا, istiqamah we're talking about. They remain steadfast on the right course, on Sirat al-Mustaqim. The Malaika will descend upon them saying, do not fear and do not grieve, but receive the mubashirah, the glad tidings, the good news from Allah Ta'ala of Jannah, which you were promised. This is a promise from Allah Ta'ala for those who remain steadfast. Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ahqaf, He says, indeed those who have said, رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Indeed those who have said, Allah is our Rabb, Allahu Rabbana, Allah Rabbi wa Rabbukum. Allah is our Rabb. Radit billahi Rabba, we say. وَبِالْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا وَبِهِ مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. We say this. And these are the answers to the question in the grave. When we ask, who is your Rabb? We say, Allahu Rabbana, Allahu Rabbi wa Rabbukum, وَبِهِ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا, and Islam is my deen, and وَبِهِ سَيِّدِنَا وَمَوْلَانَا مُحَمَّدٍ الْمُصْطَفَى صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ نَبِيًّا وَرَسُولًا, that He is our Nabi, He is our Rasul. So Allah Ta'ala says, so those who say this, that Allah is our Rabb, and they remain steadfast on their deen, they don't waver. Allah Ta'ala says that there will be no fear concerning them, and they will not grieve. There will be no occasion for grief for them in this life or the next life. And then in Surah Al-Jinn it says, and Allah sent down that if they had remained steadfast on the way, we would have given them abundant water. And all these ayats of the Kareem are in reference to istiqamah, or remaining steadfast on the path of our deen. We know that during the month of Ramadan Mubarak is past, and we're into Dhul Qidah now. And during the month of Ramadan, Shahr Ramadan Mubarak, we were full of zeal and enthusiasm about our deen, and we were giving more sadaqah, we were doing Salawat Tarawih and all the things that we did to boost our iman, and we were steadfast in it because we were doing it together collectively. But then when we leave Ramadan Mubarak, we find that we're not as steadfast and as strong as we used to be during that particular month. But Allah Ta'ala is commanding us, all of those who say, Rabbuna Allah, that Allah is my Rabb, to remain steadfast. This is a command from Allah Ta'ala. And remaining steadfast, the ulama have said, and this is mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim, that this was during the time, these ayahs were sent down during the time in Makkah al-Mukarramah, when our beloved Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba Ajma'in were going through very, very grave tests and trials. So much so that they were boycotted and they were starving. They were going through extreme hardship at the hands of the kuffar of Makkah al-Mukarramah. Allah Ta'ala sent this down as a comfort to them and as a reminder that those of you who said, Allahu Rabbi, Allah is my Rabb, remain steadfast. And I will send down the Malaika to comfort you and to remind you that you will have success in this life and the next life. And Imam al-Wahidi in his Asbab al-Nuzul says that the circumstance behind the sending down of these ayat al-Karima was that hardship, that time of hardship. He mentions specifically the ayat of Surah Al-Hud, that this was during the year of sorrow, the year when Allah Ta'ala took back the beloved wife, Khadija, and took back his dear uncle Abu Talib. And even then, Allah Ta'ala sent, the Mi'raj happened at the same time. Allah Ta'ala sent down us to remain steadfast. I have not forgotten you, but don't forget the covenant that you have between you and me. That every one of us, when Allah Ta'ala says in Quran Majid, He says, and He poured forth all the souls of Sayyidina Adam al-Islam. And He showed His beautiful wife, His face, and said, Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Rabb? He said, Bala. Of course you are. So Allah Ta'ala is reminding us in these ayatul Karima, all of you who said, Allahu Rabbi, Allahu Rabbana, Allah is my Rabb, Allahu Rabbi. All of you said this on that day before your souls were sent into physical bodies. So here Allah Ta'ala is reminding us of this covenant that we have. There's an ahad, there's a covenant between us and Allah Ta'ala to obey His commandments. And Imam al-Tabari, in his Tafsir Tabari, says that this ayah is the command to remain steadfast, on your deen no matter what happens. Do not waver in your firmness in deen. Do not waver in all the things that make you Muslim. Obey the commands of Allah Ta'ala. Be obedient to the commands of Allah Ta'ala, and Allah Ta'ala will give you sakina. And that the sending down the malaika is not just in this next life, but in this life as well, because they come with sakina. There are so many well-known hadith about when the believers sit in the masjid or any other majlis, and they remember Allah Ta'ala sends down sakina. Where is this sakina coming from? You know that the well-known hadith about beloved Habib Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that the malaika, they travel, they traverse the earth, looking for these majalis al-dhikr. Dhikr in reference to not just doing La ilaha illallah, but reading Quran Majid is dhikr. Inna nazalnahu dhikr. I've sent down the dhikr, wa inna lahu lahafidhun, and I will be the one who will preserve it and protect it. This is dhikr. When we sit together, we talk about Allah Ta'ala's might and His glory. This is dhikr. Allah Ta'ala describes the khutbah and Jumu'ah as being dhikr. This is dhikr. So sakina comes down when we sit and we concentrate on Allah Ta'ala. But so many times we come to Jumu'ah and we're playing on our phones, so we miss the sakina. Our minds are distracted from everything else. Allah Ta'ala is saying, come to Jumu'ah once a week for less than an hour. And we remain distracted. So istiqamah means remaining steadfast and firm, because Allah Ta'ala has commanded Jumu'ah. He's commanded us to come to Jumu'ah, and that our attention should be focused clearly on Allah Ta'ala. But the one who has istiqamah, he is steadfast and firm no matter what test and trial he goes through. Who was tested and tried more than our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his Sahaba sallallahu alaihi majma'een? They were martyred fi sabilillah. Before Allah Ta'ala gave them permission to fight back, Sahabas were slaughtered. They were killed in Makkah al-Mukarramah. We know that one of the first martyrs was Sumayya, and Sayyidina Bilal, some tortured. So we go through difficulty and we waver in our deen. We go through someone pushing us or saying something in our school. I don't want to act like a Muslim. My name is Mo, it's not Muhammad. We hide our deen. The Sahaba they didn't hide their deen. They were steadfast and firm. We have examples in front of us of this istiqamah. This istiqamah is a physical thing as well as a spiritual thing. And one of the ulama said that, I think it might have been Imam Ibn Taymiyyah Skindiri or Rundi, who said that istiqamah is the greatest miracle. Being steadfast is a miracle in and of itself. In spite of everything that happens to you, you still practicing deen. That's a miracle, especially in this particular country. Imagine that we're living in a country where the majority of the people, supposedly, Allah knows best, are not Muslim. But there are Muslims who don't have Muslim names, but they're Muslims, so we don't know. But we live in a country where we're surrounded by unbelief, but we're still here coming to Jumu'ah. When Ramadan comes along, we fast, Ramadan Mubarak. When Hajj comes, we make Hajj, we make Umrah during the year, we give Sadaqah during the year. It's the common when you do things and you are consistent with doing those things. It is better, the ulama say, the ulama of the Sawah specifically, they say that it is better to do one thing consistently than to do things sporadically and make a big deal out of it. For example, and Allah knows best what our niyyah is, because a lot of times during the month of Ramadan Mubarak, we give. We make a big show of giving. After Ramadan, we don't give. Subhanallah. The young man or young lady who gives $1 a day or $1 a week, consistently, that $1 weighs more than the thousands of dollars that someone gives and then he stops giving afterwards. Because he's consistent with the ibadah that you do. Because sometimes what happens is we burn out because we do too much. We've seen it with young men who take the path of tariqah and they get a waliwa from their shaykh. And he says, do this specific dhikr a certain amount of times. And he gets so involved in his dhikr, he doesn't do anything else. He's just doing dhikr all day long. Did not our beloved Nabi also have a wife and children and did business? So much so that he is the example for all the believers of what tasawwuf is or what spirituality is, that no competent shaykh will tell you to sit in the masjid all day and just do dhikr all day long. But this is what happens. We burn out. We get so enthusiastic about doing a specific thing, and we forget about all the other obligations we have. So it is better for that young man who wants to sit in the masjid and do dhikr all day long to get up in the morning and do his dhikr and then go about his business. There's a story about one of the awliya from Afghanistan. His name is Syech Muhammad S. And there is a specific salawat used to be said called Durud Laki. And Urdu Laki means like 100,000 times or 1,000,000 times. And it's quite a long salawat. He would recite it in the morning. He would just keep reciting it over and over and over again all day long, just reciting the salawat. I would love, probably love to be a Kareem, Syech Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So much so that one night our beloved Habib Sallallahu came to him in his dream and said, "Oh Mahmoud, the people are in need of your services. You're the Sultan. You're the ruler of these people. And because you're so involved in doing all of this salawat on me all day, the people are not getting service. You're not doing them justice. So the command was to recite this salawat once in the morning and go about the business. And you will get the reward of 1,00,000 times, 100,000 times." So after that, Sultan Mahmud, he would recite this salawat once in the morning and then go about the business that he had to in terms of dealing with the people. So it's the same thing with everything we do. I'm not saying you shouldn't do dhikr, but make sure you're balancing it with everything else you do. Even if you're just sitting and doing it for 1 hour or 15 minutes a day or before Salatul Fajr, you sit. Even if you make one rakat of Salatul Tahajjud, if that one rakat just before Fajr is what you can do it consistently. You will get the thawab of the person who does it every now and then, who does 8. If someone makes Salatul Tahajjud and he gets up and he makes 8 rakats and then he misses for 3 days, the person who gets up just before Fajr in time enough to do 1 rakat of 2 rakats of Tahajjud gets more thawab because he's consistent in it. This is istiqamah, being consistent, being steadfast in all the things that Allah has allowed you to do. Part of istiqamah is when Allah Ta'ala says that the one who has taqwa is the one who, he would never leave his deen. Even until he leaves this life, he would never leave his deen. It's Allah Ta'ala says, and have taqwa haqqa tuqatil wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun, and have taqwa of Allah Ta'ala, to be conscious of Allah Ta'ala in a true sense of consciousness, and do not leave this life except as Muslim. This is istiqamah. That the believer would never even think about leaving this life except he's on iman, that he's a believer, that he would never become a traitor to his deen no matter what happens. Ashab al-Karam, they were martyred because they would not turn back on their deen. Allah Ta'ala mentions, he says that they will never be satisfied with you till you turn back on your deen. And this is actually what happened with some of those who accepted Islam in Mecca al-Mukarramah. Because of the presence, they turned back on their deen. Allah Ta'ala says, had you remained steadfast and firm on your deen, I would have given you prosperity. When he says that I would have sent water from the sky, I would have sent water. And the commentary is that water was specifically talking about abundance. Because when water flows, it flows abundantly, it flows everywhere. It takes over everything. When the flood comes, water flows everywhere. Anywhere there's a crack, the water's going to go. So the commentary is that this is from Surah Al-Jinn. Surah Al-Jinn, we know that in the very beginning of Surah Al-Jinn, Allah Ta'ala is talking about the jinns who took shahada. They heard the recitation of Al-Quran Majid and they said, وَقَالُوا إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا قُرْآنًا عَجَبًا. We've heard an amazing recitation and we believe in it. وَلَا أُشْرِكُ بِرَبِّنَا أَحَدًا. Misquoting the ayah. But they would say, we will never commit shirk after that. So the principle of istiqamah is that you hold fast to your tawheed. You never commit shirk, never associate anything with Allah Ta'ala, either knowingly or unknowingly, either openly or secretly. You never associate a partner with Allah Ta'ala, even to the point of never saying, had it not been for brother so and so and so. Well, this is shirk. Because now we're blaming our condition on that person and not recognizing that Allah Ta'ala allowed them to do what they did. Istiqamah is recognizing that everything that happens is with the permission of Allah Ta'ala, and this is how you remain steadfast and firm. That if this has happened to me, Allah knows that it's happened to me. I'm not leaving my deen because of this pressure. This is my test. Istiqamah, the one who has istiqamah, he passes the test because he holds firm to whatever part of deen he has. Even if he's just making his salat and no sunnahs, he's making his 5 salat consistently until he gets to the point where he begins to make sunnahs. Because it is better to make 5 salat farded than to make farded and sunnah and the wahab and then give up. This is too much for me. And the Nabi Karim, he says that, that you should do what you can do and be consistent. Even if it's a small thing, be consistent. That is just to become a remaining steadfast and firm and consistent in that one thing you do all the time. Our family, we run a food pantry called Medina Food Pantry. There's a young girl, she may be 12 or 13, she donates $1 a day. More valuable than those who give $100 and $20. Every day she gives $1. Consistently. Can you imagine the barakah she's getting from that? One consistent deed, even though we think it's small. It's not small. Allah Ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Mulk, he mentions that, وَمَا تُقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُم مِّنْ خَيْرٍ تَجِدُوهُ عِندَ اللَّهِ. And whatever good you do, you will find it with your Rabb. Whatever, he didn't say if you donate $1,000. He said whatever good you do, وَمَا تُقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُم خَيْرٍ. Whatever good you send forth from yourselves that is good, you will find it with your Rabb. But you will get better than what you did. And then wastaghfirullah, and seek Allah's forgiveness for that little bit of sadaqah you gave. That whatever you're consistent doing, say, Ya Allah, because I'm consistent in making these 2 rakats for tahajjud, Ya Allah, forgive me the mistakes I made. Ya Allah, for this $1 that I give for my allowance, Baba gave me $2 for allowance, I'm giving $1 for allowance. Ya Allah, whatever mistakes I made, if I breached the adab, if I made Baba mad, I'm mad, please forgive me, Ya Allah. Kids can make dua too. Their duas carry more weight than ours. I asked my grandson, make dua for me, man. This is consistency. So the one who is istiqamah, he's consistent no matter what. But we can never turn back on a deen. Again, the believer who is steadfast and firm, he shudders at the thought of leaving his life in a state of kufr, unbelief. This is iman. All of us have this iman. All of us have this quality, but sometimes, again, we do too much. Again, this is not, Ustaz is saying you can stop doing all the good things you're doing, just do one thing. I'm not saying that. Whatever you do, find at least one thing you can do consistently, and that's istiqamah. That one thing is following the Sharia, following Quran and Sunnah in everything you do. Even the ulama of tasawwuf, the basis of tasawwuf in spirituality is following the Sharia. There's a well-known book called Al-Kitab al-Ta'arif li-Madhab Ahl al-Tasawwuf by Imam Abu Bakr al-Khalabadi. They translate it as meaning the doctor, but it's the manhaj of the people of Tasawwuf. And he gives you the evidences of why they do what they do, and it's all from Quran and Sunnah. So even no matter what you do, make sure it's according to Quran and Sunnah. This is just the calm that you're holding fast to your deen, you never let it go. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا خير الناس. Ya Allah, we ask Allah that He allow us to be of those who remain steadfast and firm on our deen, that we never turn away from it, that He allow us to be consistent in at least one or two things, and that we are raised in Yom Qiyamah being consistent on those things, so we find the sakina in Yom Qiyamah with the malaika and this world as well.
الله أكبر الله